Hello and welcome back to another video from the Barrett channel. Before we get into the video, just like to once again thank everybody who is supporting the channel on either Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Really appreciated. So yeah, thank you very much everybody. Also thank you for everybody who watches the channel. Okay, so another update on the coronavirus today. As of this morning, there were just under 8,000 confirmed cases. And in the province that I'm in, which is Guangdong, there are 300 confirmed cases. The majority of the cases are still in the Hubei province, where obviously it's the epicenter of where the virus came from, and they are obviously still sort of struggling a little bit to get things under control there. And there are a handful of cases abroad, and I think we've noticed in the last couple of days that a number of airlines have either stopped flying flights to China or have really cut down. Cathay Pacific have cut down a lot of the flights. British Airways have cut down actually British Airways have stopped flying to the mainland China altogether. So next, really, I'd just like to sort of I just come for a walk out just to show you how quiet things are in Shenzhen. And I think it's testament to that people are listening to the advice of the government and only travelling if absolutely necessary. This is a sort of area kind of close to where I live, and as normally the Chinese New Year will be coming to an end right now, this sort of street would be normally really busy and packed. But as you can see, there are a few people around, but I can tell you it's certainly nowhere near what it would normally be. This would absolutely be thriving and busy. You can probably see that there's many stores still not open. Really not so many people around. It is busier than it was yesterday, but not a great deal. As I say, normally this would be absolutely ram-packed. I wouldn't easily be able to walk up the street like this because there would just be so many people around. But yeah, people are really heeding the warnings to only travel when absolutely necessary and stay home as much as possible. So that's a good thing. Just one thing that sort of I've noticed. Some foods have become a little bit in short supply. And due to the fact of that, the price has gone up. I've noticed the food that seems to be in short supply is mainly vegetables. Yesterday I went to buy some potatoes from the market, and now normally I pay between 2 and 3 yuan per 500 grams for potatoes, but yesterday I had to pay 5 yuan per 500 grams for those potatoes. So almost double the price. But I think, it isn't great, but I think anywhere in the world when things are a supply and demand, the bigger the demand, the shorter the supply, the price goes up. And a number of the provincial authorities have said they will be keeping a very close eye on this, making sure people are not just profiteering from the shortages. From what I can see, it seems most of the major supermarkets are not hiking the prices. There may be a very small increase, but nothing too noticeable. This morning, or not this morning, it was just after lunch actually, we went to BLT. Now BLT is quite a bit of a higher end supermarket. They sell a lot of organic stuff. Things in BLT are a little bit more expensive than they are in other supermarkets. But I managed to get most things that I needed this morning from BLT. Sorry bears, just crossing the road, so I just need to be a bit careful. I got most of the things that I need to get from BLT, certainly all the vegetables, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, etc, etc. Okay, next I'll talk about the sort of huge effort that's being made here in China to combat the problem. First of all, there are 2 hospitals, I think I've mentioned this in my video, that are being constructed in Wuhan to deal with deal with this outbreak. And I think you've really got to give credit to the people or the workers here and the construction people, everybody involved in the project. I really don't believe there's anywhere in the world that could construct 2 buildings of such a huge size in such a short amount of time. And then there's another instance. There's a hospital in the neighboring city to Wuhan, which is Huanggang, and that was a hospital under construction, approximately the size of 1,000 or so beds, and the authorities decided that they needed to really advance the finishing that building. The structure was complete, it just hadn't been fitted out inside, and teams worked around the clock, telecom teams, electricity guys, and people fitting it out, and they literally worked around the clock for 48 hours to get that facility built and opened. And in fact, it opened to its first people, first patients yesterday morning, and that is just pretty miraculous, really. So I'm here in Shenzhen. Initially in Shenzhen, the holiday period, the New Year holiday period, was extended for 2 days, but it's since been extended again for another week, simply to try to alleviate the spread of the virus. And this will be a huge financial hit. I'm not sure whether this is all over China. Maybe people who are in different provinces can sort of comment down below about that. But it is a really, really huge thing to do that. It'll be a massive financial hit. Then the next thing is that I've been following a couple of press conferences here in China, and the authorities of although it is Chinese New Year, what you got to appreciate at Chinese New Year, although the holiday officially is only a week, many factories, many organizations, especially factories, they tend to sort of shut down for a much longer period than that, 3 to 4 weeks in some cases. And this is one of the reasons that there was a shortage in sort of masks and suits and things, because a lot of these companies had already finished for the Chinese New Year holiday, and the workers had already returned home. And what the authorities have done, they've got all those the owners of those businesses, contacted them and got production up and running again. They've got a lot of their workers back in, or they've commandeered new temporary workers. So those factories now are sort of going at full swing to manufacture the masks, the suits that are needed. And a lot of that stuff is getting shipped to Wuhan, where obviously the biggest need is. I think in many other provinces, there's a few hundred cases. Guangdong has got one of the highest at just over 300. But I think it's really important to get this into context. So, for example, Guangdong is a province with in excess of 110 million people. So, 300 cases is not a huge amount of people. It's not it's really just a very, very small percentage of people. And I would imagine over the period of a few days, there are probably more people that die in road accidents. And actually, as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any deaths from this virus within the Guangdong province. But there are far more. So what I'm trying to say really is people need to get this into a perspective, really. You know, it is a serious thing. And I think one of the most serious issues we have with this here is that it seems that the virus can be spread. The virus can be spread without there being any symptoms. Now, this obviously is a problem. Many places that you go here in Shenzhen, there are temperature checks. You know, this morning we went out on the metro, we got a temperature check. When you enter many supermarkets, there'll be a temperature check. Yeah, there are a lot of temperature checks in many places. Now, I know a lot of people will say these are a bit useless because you know, symptoms can spread and people can be infected before they develop a fever. Yes, that appears to be true from what the experts are saying, and there are people who seem to be infected with the virus who are showing little or no symptoms at all. However, I think that there are some people who do develop symptoms. So it is a check that it's better than doing nothing. That's the point. You know, if you did nothing at all, then you know you might stop 1 or 2 people from entering a supermarket and infecting many others. So I do think it's still viable to do this check-in. So I just sat down to get myself a coffee. Actually, it's one of the smallest coffees I've ever seen. It's a latte, but it's really kind of small. It's some local cafe. So with this virus, the next thing I'd like to talk about is the rumours and misinformation that are being spread around. It seems that anything that is lies or rumours spreads far more quickly than actual truthful information, and I find this absolutely crazy. And it's the same here on WeChat. And you know, I've seen some accounts, especially by a couple of foreigners within Wuhan, who are just like absolutely completely overreacting to the situation. Oh, governments, you know, you must get us out of here, we're gonna die. And it is absolutely ridiculous, you know. Again, it's all about getting this into perspective. If you don't have the virus, you don't have symptoms, just wash your hands, take precautions, stay inside, blah blah blah. And you know, there's other things on social media. There was one particular one of apparently there was a nurse in a Wuhan hospital saying that there was this went viral too, saying that there's 100,000 people infected with the disease. Well, you know, one, you know, that there's no evidence that this is factual for a start, and two, you know, how would that nurse really even know whether there was 100,000 cases or not? You know, and I think spreading this kind of video and rumor is really kind of dangerous because it just panics the people. And it's the same as you know, many anti-China YouTubers in they're really just spreading panic and untruths. You know, I just find it absolutely stupid, really. I think people should really watch something and think, you know, rationally about whether it could actually be true or not. You know, I have no idea whether the numbers coming out from the Chinese authorities are true numbers, but I also, on the other hand, I have no reason to believe that they're not. You know, this virus, of course, the amount of suspected and actual cases will increase because it's, you know, it's been sort of shown by people who know what they're doing, by you know, health people and scientists, that it can actually transfer from person to person without any symptoms. So this, it probably makes it one of the hardest viruses to track. Another crazy rumor, and this has been spread by quite a big YouTuber, is that that the virus came from dead seafood at a seafood market. Now, anybody who knows anything about viruses are not spread from things that are dead. Viruses are spread from live things, and again, it is all pointing back to from what I've read and the research I've done, that it all points back to a live wild animal in the market, this particular market in Wuhan. But I still think the scientists are racing and learning as much as they can about this disease as quickly as they can. And the more they find out, the more they will be able to, the more things they can do to prevent the spread. But I really think it's important that people just don't panic and get things completely out of proportion. There was another one that was spreading around on YouTube and other social media platforms. A Chinese influencer was eating a bat, and everybody quickly jumps onto, look at these Chinese people, they eat anything that moves. Yeah, they do eat different stuff to us in the West, and there's some dishes that I wouldn't eat here because I don't want to eat them, I don't like them. But offal for one is I don't eat offal, but my parents ate offal, and some of these things were eaten in Western countries. And actually, if you look over the world, there are many countries that eat different kinds of animal because that's part of their culture or what they have done in the past all their life. But just because it's seen as not done in the West, that doesn't make it wrong. Like in the UK, we don't eat horse meat, but there's many places that eat horse meat, and horses, any animal can get these viruses. I think that the key take home here is that one thing that I think the Chinese authorities really need to do is have more restrictions and regulation about this wildlife. If people have had roadkill in European countries for years, and people still continue to eat roadkill. There's a famous chef in the UK who catches and cooks and eats wild animals. It's really not an issue, but I think the issue is the regulation and control of this, and that has I think that has been an issue here in China, and I do hope the authorities will address that. But anyway, this part really is about just be careful about what you believe. Be careful about people spreading a lot of things that are untrue. Look at the actual facts. Take your data from sources like the WHO and the CDC who have accurate information. I understand that people, but the cases are rising every day. Well, of course they will rise every day until the situation is totally quarantined. Where you have a country where the population of 1.4 billion, you can't just lock down a whole country like that. It's just absolutely not possible. And this leads me on to another area. I was quite I was amazed at reading an article. I think it appeared in The Guardian. I will link that article down below. This was actually a Chinese guy reporting from the UK, where people are actually becoming, hostile towards Chinese people because this outbreak has happened in China. And I find this absolutely, disgraceful, really. I have a number of Chinese friends in the UK. And, for them to be discriminated against by the British public is just absolutely disgusting. The report said that, first of all, the reporter who's Chinese ethnicity, he actually grew up and been raised in England. but he sat next to somebody on a bus, and that person immediately got up and moved away from him. He heard some other people talking, saying, don't go to Chinatown because those Chinese people all have the virus, as if it's something that only attacks, a certain ethnicity of people. And I find that really quite alarming that people think like that. I think people have to look at this a little bit more rationally and realise what's going on. Okay, on to Wuhan itself, and some countries have already started airlifts to evacuate their people out of Wuhan. I think Japan was the first country to do that. I think a plane left yesterday or the day before, and Australia, the US, and a number of European countries are also doing that now. So due to the ability for this virus to spread from person to person, as well to be able to spread from people who are not showing symptoms, most of those countries have decided to quarantine those citizens that they've evacuated, which personally I think is a very sensible thing. Quarantine them for 10 to 14 days to make sure they don't pass that on to other people in their communities when they return back to their countries. That is a very sensible thing. However, I noticed Japan have said they're not going to do that, which I do find really quite strange, and I hope the Japanese don't live to regret that decision. Next, I see many online stuff again on social media, particularly by a couple of YouTubers who are in the USA, who was sort of really being very critical of the Chinese authorities' response to the situation, suggesting that they're not doing enough, that they're not acting quick enough. Now, I think again you have to remember the size of China and the size of these cities. It is really not possible to shut down a country with 1.4 billion people. There is no way you can stop people moving around. Many small villages have been closed, and rural areas have been closed to stop people coming in and out. There are a huge amount of messages on TV, on WeChat groups, on official WeChat groups, through any official media to tell people what to do. That is to stay at home as much as possible, only travel if it's absolutely necessary. They're also giving you, quite clear instructions what to do if you believe you are infected or have contracted the virus. Many provinces have and cities have dedicated hospitals that you need to turn to. Again, onto the hospitals, it seems to from what I understand and from what I can see, apart from the hospitals in the Hubei province who've literally been absolutely overwhelmed, it seems that all other provinces have the situation quite under control. There's no shortage of hospital beds, there's no shortage of kit and masks, etc. Just while I'm on the subject of masks, again, this was something that was pushed by a certain YouTuber, anti-China YouTuber who's in the USA, saying, they tried to buy some masks in America and everywhere sold out because all the Chinese people are buying up the masks to sell for a huge profit. Again, not true. Many of those people, because there was a shortage of masks here in China, there's many Chinese people who live all over the world, and there's a large amount of Chinese people who live in the USA. Many of those were buying masks from the USA to send to their family and relatives within China. So again, these people are spreading this misinformation to make Chinese people look bad. It's really very unfair. It's really, they should really think about what they're doing before they spread so much disinformation. Yeah, I'm sure there are some Chinese people that are profiteering from masks, but I'm sure there's many that are not. And lastly, I just want to talk about, again, getting this into perspective. China has a population of 1.4 billion people, and currently there are 8,000 confirmed cases. Just around 150 to 200 people who've died from the virus. Now again, I'll stress, most of those people, if not all of those people that have died, are older people who had other medical issues, or it's people with weak immune systems from other underlying illnesses. Okay, we don't know what the future brings. There are a number of cases in a critical condition, and as time goes on, we will see what happens with those. But currently the death rate from this virus is quite small. It's around 2 to 3%. So again, we need to get that into perspective. What we also need to get into perspective, if you take something like the common flu, which is something that every year manifests itself in many Western countries, and take the figures, you look at there, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in Western countries contract the flu each year. And again, like this virus, it affects people to different levels. If you're weak and have underlying illnesses, you will be affected worse. If you're fit and healthy, then generally, it doesn't affect you so bad. It just sort of knocks you off your feet for a few days, and most people make a recovery. And I think that's as well. There are literally tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in modern developed Western countries who die from the common flu every year. So again, this really does need to be put into a perspective that right now there are 8,000 confirmed cases, there are less than 200 deaths. So I think in a population of 1.4 billion, there's no need to massively panic at this stage. And it's widely expected that the number of cases will rise significantly over the next weeks, maybe even months. But I think that the Chinese authorities cannot be faulted at all about what they are doing. They've virtually locked down cities of tens of millions of people, and I really doubt that could be done anywhere else. I think that the most worrying thing is if this starts spreading to countries that are much more or much less prepared to be able to deal with a situation like this, some African countries and Indian countries. And I think maybe over the coming days we will see a lot more flights being cancelled to some of these destinations from China. I really believe that at all levels of Chinese government, everything possible is being done to stop the spread of this. You can't force 1.4 billion people to stay indoors 24/7. Until further notice. That's just not possible. But I believe from being here in China and seeing with my own eyes what's being done, I really believe they are on top of this, and I don't think there is a lot more that they could actually do to prevent the spread of this. And scientists all around the world are, frantically working on trying to discover more about the virus, so they can do as much as they can to either come up with a vaccine, but I think that's not going to realistically happen in a short time frame. So I think we just gotta be as careful as we can here. Just one other thing before I go. It's announced as from Thursday, the authorities in Hong Kong are stopping the high-speed trains that connect to the mainland, and also they're stopping the issuance of visas for mainlanders to travel to Hong Kong. I don't know whether you know, but if you're a mainlander here in China, you can't just travel to Hong Kong. You have to have a special sort of visa. There are different levels of those visas, but most are kind of temporary visas which allow 1 or 2 visits. So they're going to stop issuing those in the meantime, in an order to try and stop the spread of the virus to Hong Kong. Anyway, that brings me to the end of another video. I'll be really interested to hear your comments, suggestions, etc. I think this will be a thing that will be fuel to the bonfire from the China haters. It seems, you know, these people love anything that is an issue in China, and they'll just pile on, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, stay safe, take all the necessary precautions, and as always, take care. Oh, sorry, forgot. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you like the channel, please subscribe. And if you want to get notified of videos as soon as we release them, hit that notification bells. Anyway, second time, take care.